Hey everyone, Dr. Liz here. I just can't seem to get the podcast out right now. So this is what I'm going to publish. I was in the hurricane that hit Asheville, Hurricane Helene. So I had flown in Thursday night for a trip that we had already planned for me to visit my daughter in Asheville. And I got there around 8:30 p.m. and we lost power at 6 a.m. the next morning. We luckily had some resources and we rode out the hurricane together. The loss of power, loss of water, um, rescuing friends. We had to rescue one friend who was evacuated from their apartment, and they had two cats that they brought with them. Loved those two cats. So cute. Kept us entertained. Another friend came over because he was all alone. His girlfriend was in Chicago for work at the time, and he came over. So there was 5 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment. My daughter and her boyfriend slept in the bed. The one with the cats slept on the floor. That's what they preferred. And then me and the other friend slept on an L-shaped couch. We slept where like our feet would meet, so our heads were at opposite ends. It was super funny. But the one friend with cats, their apartment was actually completely destroyed. Completely. They live on a second-story apartment, and the water line was up to about the mid-window of their apartment, completely flooded with mud. They lost their car. They lost their apartment. It is dire in Asheville in West North Carolina. So I have put some reputable links in the show notes if you do want to donate. If you're more auditory, then you can look up belovedasheville.com. You can donate on Venmo to Asheville Poverty Initiative. So there's 2 resources for you to donate to if you're so inclined. Now, all 4 of these kids were from Florida, but none of them had really prepared because nobody prepared in Asheville. Nobody thought it would be a hurricane this size. And the destruction that happened is devastating, devastating. Mia's dad, my ex-husband, was our main point of communication. So once we found out that the water was not going to be restored for 2 to 3 weeks, I was like, we've got to have a plan to get out of here. Like, we don't have enough drinking water to sustain us. Now, I had a rental car, so I knew I was leaving on Tuesday regardless. I'd have to drive it to another city to drop it off or something. But for the rest of them, I was like, we've got to have a plan here. We don't have enough drinking water for all of us to stay here the whole time, because it had to be bottled or boiled. Well, you can't boil water without power. If you don't have power, you can't boil the water. If you don't have water to boil, you can't boil water. So boil water notices were sort of a non-issue, really. All it did tell us is that you can't drink out of a tap if water is coming out of somebody's tap, not ours. So we made a plan. The one friend went to his brother's in Charlotte. The friend with the cats went with us, and I took them over to Mia's uncle in Raleigh, which is in East North Carolina. And he has a big house and said they're welcome to stay as long as they need to. So luckily we had that resource, but the destruction that's going on and the loss of life is severe right now. So I feel discombobulated, honestly, right now. I'm very scatterbrained. I forgot it was Rosh Hashanah, which I don't usually forget. I live in South Florida, which has an extremely high Jewish population, and I know all the holidays generally. Okay. And I just completely forgot. I was like, oh my gosh. I am crying randomly. I know all of this is a result of trauma, and I didn't even feel like I was traumatized with a big T. Felt like I had trauma with a little t, but all of these I know are signs of trauma that I'm still processing. So for any of you who have relatives or are living in a disaster zone, I don't think anyone's listening to a podcast and who's living in a disaster zone right now. So let's just skip that part. But for any of you who have friends or family that were affected or living that way all around the world, war zones, poverty, I just want to say that I feel for you. These things actually make me cry occasionally randomly when I think about them. But then having gone through something like this myself pretty recently, it's a little bit more than that, more than randomly. I know we are such resilient human beings. It's a miracle that any of us are alive. I think sometimes maybe that's like a parenthood thought. Like it's a miracle when your children make it to adulthood. It's a miracle that we walk around alive every day, that there are hospitals and doctors and things that can help us stay alive. We're all so vulnerable. So I think about that all the time. And I also think about how resilient we are, that we do stay alive, that we do come into community when we're needed, that people are generous and kind all over the world. There was someone in Asheville who owned a bar and opened up the bar to feed people. Like they were going to lose anything that needed to be refrigerated anyway, and it was free. There was another couple of restaurants that were charging a lot for food in cash only, and this place didn't do that. They said, "Come and eat if you need to. It's free." So there's like kind and generous people out there, and somehow the word spreads and news gets around, and people come together with music, guitars, and tom-toms and things like that were going on in Mia's rental community. We also have like books and art. She has a ton of art supplies and she loves art. That kept us entertained without power. I travel with this little bitty sewing kit that's about the size of canned food, like your regular 15-ounce canned food. It's about half of that actually. Has a little lid to it. And so I had a little sewing kit with me with some little projects I was working on. I taught the friend with the cats how to sew, and that entertained us for a little bit. But it's still hard to go through, even with those resources. It's hard to go through and hard to stay in the moment there. We actually couldn't stay in the moment. We had to make some plans to evacuate for our safety. It was hard to contain the anxiety sometimes. Anxiety was rising for sure. Because also it's like my daughter and her friend, their work was closed for 2 weeks. I think the third friend, I know his work was closed. I don't know how long for, but that means they're missing out on a paycheck for 2 weeks as well. And these are young adults living paycheck to paycheck, not a lot of savings because they don't make a whole lot to be able to save. They're making like minimum wage or right above it. So that's a concern. You can see the anxiety rising for them. Like, what are they going to do? How are they going to pay their rent? Obviously, the friend whose apartment is destroyed is not paying rent, but now they don't have a car either. Their car was completely flooded. So it's like, how are they going to even get around, and who are they going to stay with and live with, and all kinds of stuff? Those questions come up. That's where I've been this week. Even amongst all of that, I think my gratitude practice really helped me. I've exchanged like gratitude lists with a friend for 3 years or so on the daily. And it's helpful to have that practice in the midst of a disaster zone. Like grateful that we had any drinking water that we had gotten before the hurricane hit. Grateful that we had the cats to entertain us. Mia also has like 3 little mice, so we would check on the mice and those would entertain us. Grateful that we all had a good sense of humor and we could laugh at things and make jokes and talk, and they all were great conversationalists. That's something to be grateful for. Grateful we had pool water to flush the toilets when it came down to that. And grateful we had resources. The friend with the cats went home to Florida to their parents. Mia and her boyfriend went over to her uncle's house. I mean, I was prepared to drive them to Florida if I needed to, but they wanted to be a little bit closer in case her boyfriend had to go back for work, because he works at a hotel that was up and running. So that was a plan. Grateful I had a rental car. I don't always rent a car when I go visit her because she has a car. But this time we had planned to go visit a couple of other cities around her area, and I had a rental car with a full tank of gas. So I was very grateful for that. So that practice, I think, just helped me find the gratitude in the small things as we went along. And since I was already used to doing it, I'm already used to looking for things that I'm grateful for. I think it was easier for me. If you want to start your own gratitude practice, here's your chance right here. You can write 3 things a day. I'll tell you how my friend and I do it. You can figure out your own way that works for you. Some people do it through email. I have done it that way before. They just send an email out once a day to their friend or their community. Sometimes it's a group of people. So I did it before in the past with a whole group of people. So you would receive their gratitude emails once a day or a couple times a week. But with my friend and I, we each have our own gratitude notebook that we write our daily gratitude in. And we shoot for 3 minimum. Sometimes it's more. When we travel, we don't take the notebook, we just send a text. But I find the notebook works really well for me, the actual handwritten, writing it out. And we like to use stickers. I think she started that. She started putting stickers on hers. And I don't know why stickers makes it more fun, but it does. Stickers make it more fun. So we use stickers and we just take a picture of it and text it to each other every day. And then we acknowledge that we received it. So we give a thumbs up or a heart or something like that. I think that acknowledgement is actually important because you know that they got it and that they've read it. That has helped me sustain a gratitude practice for so long. But enough about gratitude. Again, my heart goes out to everyone suffering right now, whether you're in the US, abroad, whether you're in a disaster zone, a war zone, or just at home. As humans, we suffer. And I hope that you can find a moment of happiness or contentness or joy somewhere. And again, if you want to help Western North Carolina and the devastation there, or Asheville, then please donate if you can. All right, everyone. I hope you're healthy and safe when you're listening to this. Peace.